Lopes fans, welcome in. My name is Brennan Williams, and this is Go Lopes Radio. We are coming to you live after GCU opens up the season with a win, 90-71 over IPFW. We're joined here in person by intern Blake. Blake, how are we doing?
Doing great, man. That was super fun to watch that first game. It was a good double-digit win, and I thought we played a pretty complete game the whole way.
Yeah, and first, guys, we are doing our first ever kind of like post-game in-arena reaction here. Instead of kind of taking our time, we want to kind of catch some of that raw energy that we saw tonight. So I think, Blake, the only way to start this off, we had some keys before the game. Let's get into those. We'll start with yours. Let's go to you really quick here. And you said not letting IPFW guards fill it up and beat you. Had not Stevenson and Craig combined for 49 points on 19 of 39 shooting. How do you kind of grade that out? Second half, they were a little friskier.
Yeah, they were friskier in the second half. They did cut it to 9 points at one point, hit a couple more threes. And I said, don't let those guys beat us. They didn't beat us at the end of the day. They did fill it up. It was really just those three guys that scored, I think, over 60% of their points that game. And I would have liked to see maybe a little bit more help off of some of their bigger guys that didn't do a whole lot. But I think we honestly did pretty good there. We limited those guys to the best of our abilities, and we also were able to use our size. Like I said earlier in the pregame one, those three guys are all guards. They're all pretty small guys. And so we were able to use our size. I thought Efe had a great game. I thought Nana had a great game as well.
Yeah, one thing I mentioned too is it's not just like making life hard for them on the offensive end. It feels like in the first half they're running, like GCU was running, making shots. They're moving the ball. You got to close out. That's how you wear those smaller guys down. So it seemed like, okay, maybe they get hot and they have some stretches, but at the end of the day, they're not going to all be able to sustain 40 minutes of trying to beat GCU.
Exactly, and like we said, they went on that run, cut it to 9 at one point. I believe it was at about the under 8 timeout. But then they kind of ran out of energy. You know, we kind of went inside a few times. There's a couple FA dunks, a couple Nano layups, and they just ran out of energy in general.
So we're going to get to my key, but really quick breakdown here, guys. GCU outscores IPFW 49-27 in the first half, and then the second half, IPFW did score 44 points, outscores the Lopes by 3, but again, GCU kind of pulls away at the end as IPFW cuts it close. Real quick, though, I think students, great turnout. I thought Havocs were really great tonight. A ton of energy there. Obviously, first home game you'd hope. One thing we were talking about is the other kind of the adult fans. They got to their seats.
It filled in.
Filled in. We were a little nervous there. We know, hey, it's football season. Cardinals playing tonight. All sorts of stuff going on. So we'll take it for the first game. Lopes back at home Friday against Youngstown State. But my key to the game we'll go through here really quick. All I wanted to see, guys, was more ball movement. I wanted to see that assist number up over 15. And, guys, I don't know. Can you give them more of like a passing grade on that?
I mean, I'm saying A plus. Like there was such good ball movement that game. I was really impressed, and especially in the first half. I thought there was 10 assists in the first half, so that was great to see.
We just kept looking at each other every possession. It was like, wait, really? Like, obviously, I think the first two games we didn't see a ton of it, which is a little disappointing. But holy smokes, it was whipping around. One thing I asked Bryce about in the post game, which the post game press will be up in a little bit, but if he's ever coached a team that has this unique makeup where Brian Moore has 4 assists, Dusty Stromer 5 assists, Nano Wusi 5 assists, and then Wilhelm is a big guy with 3 assists. So it's not just the team assists, but it's that they can come from weird spots. Nana having 5 and Wilhelm having 3 is pretty crazy for big guys.
Yeah, and that's one thing I wrote down on our post-game thoughts was that interior passing I thought was pretty impressive. I mean, there was multiple times where a big man would drive in the paint, jump stop, and dish it off to another big man who was able to finish at the rim. And that's pretty impressive. If you're able to do that, you're a tough team to beat in the paint.
Caleb and Wilhelm coming off the bench. That's kind of like, I hate to say you're spoiled, but those guys coming in and just having a connection, having not played together before.
It seems like they already have so much chemistry. So that's great.
To have those guys come in off the bench, I thought was really, really impressive. Okay, other thing, you talked a little bit about the defense. IPFW shoots 42% from the field, 27 from 3. Now, I thought IPFW, they did have a few looks maybe they could have made. For the most part, though, GCU, they just have so much length. I felt like IPFW, there was a lot to handle for them to try to make jumpers.
It did seem like a lot to handle. And, we went into that 2-3 zone in the second half. I kind of had mixed thoughts about it. How did you think that 2-3 zone looked?
I think college-wise, I'm not a big zone guy. I just think at the end of the day, there's always going to be something in the back of your mind when it's zone.
It's a downgrade.
There's just a little bit of complacency. Last year's zone was really bad. That was really bad. I think this group does have enough of a motor, though, and maybe the personnel for it. Just mentally for me, I'm kind of out on a zone. So.
I agree. It's a dying breed, and when teams like Syracuse aren't even running their zone anymore, it's not the best defense. So.
One thing I want to run through here, and we're going to wrap it up here in a little bit, guys, but is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in double digits. That doesn't include 2 guys who also scored 8. Bryce has talked about all summer long, everybody's going to score. The ball's going to move. It's not going to stop. If you stop the ball, everyone's going to know, and it's going to be really obvious. I felt like I asked the players too in the presser, like, is there a little bit of pressure when you get the ball that, like, if you hold on to it, everyone's going to know and see it. They say, no, there's not pressure, but we do understand, like, that thing has got to move. I felt like it did not stop. Even when they were making turnovers, felt like it didn't kind of discourage them from continuing to move the ball.
I agree. And another thing they did pretty good this game was transition offense. And also the ball didn't seem to stop there either. It wasn't one guy hogging the ball in transition. They were looking up to make that extra pass and get the guy that's farthest down the court, which led to a lot of easy baskets.
We talked a little bit about it. We love the big guys off the bench coming, passing the ball. Yeah. And obviously we mentioned the Wilhelm and Caleb Smith connection. Dusty Stromer, 5 assists is. I was kind of shocked.
I didn't realize
5 assists. It. Obviously, he's a threat with the jumper, coming off things. He's always moving. He's busy. But 5 assists from Dusty.
I thought that was really impressive from him. And I thought he had a really underrated game. I also wrote down his ability to play off 2 feet is something that's really strong, and that stuck out to me because he's really good at getting past that first guy, and then he can get to that jump stop. He had one of them, I think he pump faked. Defender went way by him. He shot a fadeaway, which is pretty good. And then he got inside again, went off 2. He missed the layup, but it was also a really good move. And so, I thought he had a really underrated game. Those 5 assists stuck out for sure.
Yeah. I talked about it before the game. I was like, I think I maybe undersold what Dusty could do. I think I might have a little bit bigger of a role for him this year. We'll see.
So much talent.
We'll see how that plays out. If we got to do a little bit of nitpicking, let's do it. Second half wasn't great. I don't know, the energy-wise wasn't there, and I thought that was pretty evident when Bryce calls the timeout there. But I don't know what that was. Maybe it's just at the end of the day, it's just complacency and it's human nature, and you're not going to win each half by 20 points. But
I agree. I think they were bound to hit some shots at some point. I mean, at least it didn't get below 9, and it was really only like a 4-minute stretch, I would say, where it seemed like they may push into the lead a little bit. But we did a good job after that of just extending that lead again, so it wasn't too big of a deal, for being honest.
I mentioned it earlier, but the thing to nitpick for me was turnovers. Bryce did talk about that. Brian Moore, 4, I don't think you'll see that again. He did have some big possessions though down the stretch. When it got close, he was able to just give me the ball, let's calm the game down. We did have 4 turnovers. I think it's going to come with this team. Like, you're going to turn the ball over if you're going to play at that pace and have the success. There is kind of a double-edged sword to that. You're walking the line the whole time, right? Like, you can't play safe, and it's pretty unprecedented. So I think those turnovers are going to happen. Henley had a few as well. I think for me, game 1, obviously IPFW, they're making a little bit of a run in the second half, but I would sign up for a few turnovers that you don't want. If you get what you get in the first half, I'd take that trade all day.
Exactly, and a lot of those turnovers were because we were playing super aggressive and just playing hard in general. So those turnovers are a lot better than you're just being lazy and you're doing stupid stuff with the ball. So it's definitely something to nitpick. It wasn't great, but I'm not too mad at it.
Only other thing I think is getting FA the ball earlier. I thought maybe he wasn't. I think Nana talked about the presser. He said, "Hey, nice of you to show up to the game." He kind of joked at them in the second half, but I think getting him the ball earlier is going to help loosen things up. Now, it was already loosened up because they were making 3s, but if you can get FA going a little bit, just get him the ball once or twice. I think that'll help out a lot.
Yeah, I think that's going to help his confidence a lot, and especially against these smaller teams where no one can really match up with his size. Giving him the ball down low.
It was simple. It felt like almost 5th or 6th grade stuff where it's like, hey, you're bigger, just go kind of post up, and they were just getting him the ball.
Yeah, and I would have liked to see it a little more in the first half, but to be fair, we put up 50 points in the first half. It's like, how mad can you be about that? Like, we were shooting the crap out of the ball. So, maybe a little earlier in the next game, look for him a bit more, but it was fun.
Yeah. So all things considered, GCU gets the win 90-71. We've got some quick news, and we're going to wrap this up here. First, I think we have to talk about Boise State in the Mountain West. I hate kind of piling it on for them because it's going to be a tough few days. Boise State hosts D2 Hawaii Pacific, first game of the season. Close all game. You're thinking Boise's eventually going to pull away. They're down, I think, 6 with like a minute and 20 left, and they fight all the way back, and they have the ball at the end of the game down 1 to try to win it. They don't get it done. Man, I was saying I was a little higher on Boise, I think, than everyone was. But that is kind of a season ruiner. There's no other way to put it.
It is. And it's so weird because they had some returning talent. Andrew Meadow came back. Pearson Carmichael came back. Like, you would think at the start of the year they'd be ready for a team like that. And there's something to know that doesn't hurt their net ranking, but still, I mean, the selection committee's never going to look at you losing to a D2 team and let you in the tournament.
It's a 3 or 4 days in March thing, I think, for them. I hate doing that and kind of doing the overreacting, but can't lose to a D2 team and say you should get in that large. There's no way. So that's it for today. I think the only other thing is GCU back here on Friday against Youngstown State. They lost to Pitt 74-59 on the road. They were frisky and hung around. You watched the game, a little bit of the game. Anything to note?
Yeah, it seemed like they hung around for a bit. I think it was a 4-point game at one point in the second half, and we both saw that Vladimir wasn't playing. That's their transfer big man.
It sounds like a hand injury.
Yeah. So we'll monitor that, see if he's back. If he is back in the lineup, that'll be big for them. But yeah, just something to monitor for that.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, we'll be back here Friday night, 7 p.m. GCU hosts Youngstown State. Youngstown State, they look to get out to a 2-0 start. Obviously, they look good tonight. Get the win against IPFW, beating most of the betting spreads, the data boys, whatever that was. So that's big, though, for the resume. So that is noteworthy to call out. So kind of job well done first game.
Exactly.
We will be back here Friday. GCU, like I said, hosts Youngstown State. Now we're going to end this video and send it over to our Youngstown KYP that we already filmed. So we hope you guys enjoy that. And we'll see you guys back here Friday. Hey, guys, welcome in. We have just reacted to GCU's first game against Purdue-Fort Wayne. We hope that was a massive win. We are recording this Youngstown State preview before the opening night of college basketball. So we hope that as, again, we go through this Youngstown State game, we are, much like we did against USC, we are trying to pick through and find stuff for this team to improve on. Hopefully it's a 25, 30-point resume helping win. But we now move on to Friday's game where GCU will host Youngstown State. They are the Penguins, and they are also seriously one of the best mascots, secondary logos in the sport. If you guys haven't seen it, posted it in the message board. Incredible, like an angry penguin. All sorts of good stuff there. Youngstown State also out of the Horizon League, which is where Purdue-Fort Wayne also plays. Guys, again, take a look at that mascot. I saw somebody with like a sweater that had one. I think it was like a golf alternate logo of the penguin with a golf club. It was incredible. We need more of that stuff. I feel like in Lopesland. We've talked about the merch. We need to get better merch. We need the logo. We need all that stuff. Like you look at some of this throwback stuff. Obviously, you come from Oregon, the stuff they do with the Duck, as much as I'm not crazy about it personally. But we need more of that stuff, don't we?
I agree. Yeah, I had never seen their logo before until you sent it, but it's pretty sick. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I think it's their secondary logo. They use the Y, which it's a right balance, right? You got a basic just Youngstown Y, and then you've got the angry penguin, which is kind of sick. But Blake, take us away. Tell us a little bit about the Ken Palm predictive model, and tell us where this team checks in the rankings a little bit better than Purdue-Fort Wayne.
Yeah, there's no spread for this game yet, but Ken Palm does have them winning by 13 points in their models. I would guess the spread comes around low double digits. 10 to 15 would be what I think. The Penguins, they're out of Youngstown State, which is in Youngstown, Ohio, obviously. They're ranked 172nd in Ken Palm, Evan Maya 162nd. So this is definitely going to be the hardest home test non-conference for us this year. They were better last year than they were expected to be, and I do think this is going to be a team that ends the year probably a little bit higher than those models have them ranked right now.
Yeah, some good context for the Mountain West. I believe San Jose State's right in this area with Youngstown State. So if you've listened to any of our Mountain West previews, right, we're quote down on San Jose State, if you will. But this gives you an idea, right? This is GCU's best home non-conference game, and they are about the same as one of the worst conference games they'll have. So just provides that context of what we've got college basketball. I think you're right, though. They'll probably end up a little bit higher. They could be really frisky in the Horizon League. So let's talk a little bit more about them. As we mentioned again, they play in the Horizon League, and Youngstown was picked third in the preseason poll. Their coach is Ethan Faulkner, who took over for Jared Calhoun. That name should absolutely sound familiar to you as a Lopes fan. That's because he's now the head ball coach at Utah State in his second season there. He returns. Utah State finally keeps a coach for a second year. He's a really good coach, guys. It's not a shock that he goes to Utah State, has a ton of success, and is predicted to have a ton of success this year. They won 19 plus games the last 4 seasons. When you just consider all the ways mid-major, you can get all those bye games, everything that comes with that. To win 19 games, I think, is pretty impressive. So other fun fact, they have never, not once,
ever made the NCAA tournament as a program. So they would be looking to check that box for the first time this year. Faulkner, obviously, it looks like a great coach, kind of takes over for Calhoun, a program that has a pretty good amount of momentum. But for reference, they lost to Syracuse on the road in overtime last year. So as most of the models have them, a little bit better than IPFW. You can look at the preseason polls; they're higher, one, 2 spots, depends where you looked, and then obviously in the rankings about 25 spots higher. I mean, Blake, you'd say pretty comfortably this should be, I know, 13 and 15, the two KenPom predictive models, but this should be a much friskier test right on Friday for the Lopes than Monday.
Yeah, I think so. I watched their non-conference game against Syracuse last year. It's a new team, obviously, but same coach, and they were winning like most of that game, and they should have won. Syracuse had like a huge run at the end of regulation to make it close, and then they pulled away in overtime. But this is definitely a team that's capable of taking a team down like GCU, so got to be careful of them.
Yeah, one big reason they were frisky last year is Gabe Dines, a name that should sound familiar if you're a Lopes fan, because you couldn't miss him on the court against USC in the exhibition. He is the 7'4", 7'5", 7'6", whatever you want to list him at. Big guy who played for USC, obviously created a ton of problems against GCU and in USC's first exhibition game. Really good player, though, like not just a big guy who kind of gets in the way, and he actually moves pretty well, and to me is a pretty good player. So you can obviously see why they'd have some success even against a team like Syracuse last year. But outside of that, guys, I've got nothing else to note. I went through the list far and high to see any sort of Youngstown State players, legends, names that might sound familiar. Obviously, if you don't play in a tournament game, it's pretty hard to get any sort of that kind of legend in college basketball. But Gabe Dines, I feel like is the only name that might be noteworthy. But he had a ton of success there. He was obviously really good and parlayed it into, I would imagine, a pretty healthy payday with the Must Bus over in Southern California. Blake, they did play an exhibition against Akron, and sounds like they were. I mean, frisky kind of seems like the word with this team, but sounds like they're pretty frisky.
Yeah, it was honestly a pretty impressive win, I thought. I mean, beating Akron 84-78 at home. Akron's a team they're out of the MAC conference. They've made March Madness in recent years. They've sent a guy to the NBA draft. They've been a solid program, and they beat them by 6. They were down 9 at the half, actually. Then they ended up outscoring them by 15 in the second half. They did this by hitting 13 threes, attempted 31 in total. They also turned Akron over 17 times. It's also to note they were missing their key transfer big man, Vladimir. I'm not going to try and say his last name, but he's from Georgia, the country, not the state. But Evan Maya does have him ranked as the projected number 1 player in the Horizon League. It's a lot harder to project how good mid-major players will be than high-major, especially transfers. But he's pretty accurate with his rankings. So to beat a team like Akron, I know it's just an exhibition, but without someone who's supposed to be one of your best players, I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah, first it is Vlad season. Great time to be a Vlad. You got Vlad Guerrero having a moment right now. And I mean, I got to be honest. Like, if we're talking teams that could potentially give GCU problems in this range, KenPom wise, right, 120 to 200, hitting 13 threes and turning a team over 17 times, it's like, okay, one of the things we've talked about, GCU doesn't shoot the 3 well. Okay, so that's not good. And then GCU's been sloppy with the ball. It's like, and obviously the ball handlers, we've talked about that with Henley. Wow. So that sticks out right away. You hear that. And so I think I don't know, if you're kind of trying to characterize this game versus Monday, obviously, hopefully coming off a win Monday, that's probably something to call out. They're a team that could get hot from 3. And I know you're going to talk a little bit more about it later, but let's talk about the player. Kind of one guy, obviously you mentioned Vlad, very high in kind of all the rankings and pretty highly regarded. But I want to talk about Chris Carroll. He's picked first team All Horizon League. I feel like that's pretty noteworthy. I feel like the coaches obviously have a ton of say in that in the media. So he was 9.2 points a game and 5 rebounds a game. I watched the tape, guys. I told Blake off camera, I was like, this guy, if you watch the tape, you would think he's like a 14 and like 6 like shooting guard. I mean, the tape looks really good. Kind of just an all-around good basketball player. I shot 36% from three. That's nothing to slouch out. If you're shooting it at volume, maybe slightly above average in college basketball. But I don't know. I think with him, he obviously, they're pretty good last year. They took Syracuse, a little bit frisky. They have a guy go to a P5, a really good team, which tells you they had the talent. He could fill some of that gaps. They're going to need people to score. I could see him going 9 and 5 up to 13, 14, 15 a game. Potentially, it sounds like, the media and the coaches are talking about the same thing with him. He's just kind of an interesting player. I don't know who's going to end up on him. Again, I've watched the tape, and it's really hard to characterize him, but he's just a good kind of, it's weird, almost like an old school small forward that you don't see anymore. And you think of the NBA, it's like obviously Kevin Durant kind of ruined the idea of like what a forward might look like, but just kind of your wing who can shoot the three. He's cutting back door. He's super active. And to me, that's what makes him a really tough guard, is he's not a guy who's going to hang out on the 3-point line, stand there and wave his hands and like beg for the ball. He's pretty active. He's backdoor cuts. He wants to score however he can. He's not, this like traditional guy. So the tape's pretty good on him, guys. I'm not even going to lie. He's a guy, obviously, you want to keep in check. And I don't know. I'm interested to see who they put on him. Dusty, does he have the strength to hang with him? Obviously, Henley, it makes a ton of sense there. But he could give GCU some problems. Want to call that out. And then obviously, if I would guess Vlad was maybe a precautionary thing, it sounds like. I guess we'll try to keep an eye on that heading into the game Friday to see if he plays in their first game Monday. But they've got some personnel here, guys. This team, like I said, sticks out just talent-wise, cohesiveness and talent-wise quite a bit more than IPFW.
Yeah, they definitely do. And I was kind of with you where I saw he only averaged 9 points per game. I thought it was a little bit higher after watching his film. But I will say it's not just us saying it. There's a reason he's projected first team All Horizon League Conference, and he'll definitely break out this year, I think, in that bigger role.
Excited to see that. Again, guys, we won't have a ton of feedback on their first game. They do play Pitt. I forgot to mention that earlier in their first game. Pitt is actually ranked in some of the rankings pretty close to GCU, I believe, kind of in the ballpark there. So that'll be an interesting game to monitor, get an idea. Keep an eye on that game on Monday. Youngstown playing at Pitt. Could give you a little bit of an idea of just how good of a test GCU has coming in on Friday. But to wrap this up, Blake, you've got a key to the game here, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier. You called it out, but tell us about it.
Yeah, I talked about it earlier. My key to the game is to win the battle at the 3-point line. It's only been exhibition games for us so far, but we're yet to shoot above 30% from the 3-point line, and we're yet to even put over 20 attempts up in a game. So for reference, Youngstown State last year was 38th in the country in 3-pointers attempted per game, and they shot 27.5 per game, which is a ton. They only made 32% of them last year, which was pretty bad. It ranked in the bottom 10% in the country.
Shooters, what do shooters do though, Blake? They only do one thing. They only know how to shoot. Yeah.
And it's a small sample size, but the game against Akron, they kept shooting. They shot 31 of them, and they made 13 of them. So that's a big reason why they won that game. And so I would love to try and see us limit some of their attempts. That is their path to winning this game, is hitting a lot of threes. And I'd also love to see us hit, I think a good goal is around 35%. That would be nice if we could shoot around that. And if we're able to do those things, I think we'll be in a pretty good position to win.
Yeah, I think that's key. I don't know. I talked after USC about the, being in the arena. Obviously, you weren't there, Blake, but when Dusty hit that three in the first half, it literally felt like such a giant breath of fresh air. Just like the word I kept using was depressurizing. And GCU has got to make some threes to just like everyone relax. We don't have to create. We don't have to go by four guys. We don't have to change the world here. We need our good 3-point shooters shooting threes and making threes. That's obviously a big part of it. And so, that's kind of the point, right? Like if GCU were to go, there's a world where GCU could, lose a 3-point battle by quite a bit. And that would be the road. In most cases it's the road to an upset, but it definitely seems like a sticking point, weak point for GCU. Haven't had a ton of success, like you said. And then they flashed a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. Again, the Penguins of Youngstown State come to GCU Arena on Friday, 7 p.m. again. Game also available on the Mountain West Network. And if you missed Monday's game and you're in Phoenix, get your butt over. It's a weekend, no excuses to miss it. You only get a certain amount of times to watch this team in person, so make sure you are there. Youngstown State, 7 p.m. on Friday. We will see you guys there, and thanks for tuning in again, guys.